it really is a color thing. They really just don't like black people, and because they've seen their ancestors lose power, essentially, because now we're trying to level the playing field, that upsets them. And for the richer, higher up, more intelligent races, I think it's literally just loss of power, the power structure that keeps them in power. Like why you see all of the White House is basically white males. We have a fucking problem with that. So, and I think they're trying to keep the status quo. I can respect that more. It sucks and it's awful and they're horrible people. But I respect a person that's like, you know what? I just don't want to give up my power. More so than the poor, broke, white person that's on my level voting with these races. They don't like you either, bruh. The only color they are into is green. If you can't make them any money and you're living off of government assistance, which the majority, if you put the numbers, white people are winning in that, but you're still voting Republican, they don't give a fuck about you. What's really funny is I have a relative who's gay and black and Republican. Now, I don't know how the fuck that happened, but yeah, it's just it's it's the world, man. Gotta love this shit, right? But yeah, why can't Superman be black? I'm just going off on tangents and shit. Sorry, guys, but that upsets me. So, Superman people, DC, and I think like Michael B. Jordan was being. I think he'd be a good Superman. It's fucking Superman. Why not? Switch the shit up. And I, for the record, would like to see a black Bond. You know what? Fuck it. An Asian Bond, an Indian Bond. Well, I guess, do Jewish people count as white? I'm gonna say yes. I know Jewish people. Please don't hit me up and say I'm fucking Jew. Like I know. Basically, what I'm saying to that is when I say that is that as a black man, as a minority brown person, Jewish people can pass. That's all I'm saying. Not saying you don't have your problems and there's not racism directed toward you. I'm simply saying, as a black man, there you have a privilege I don't. So anyway, make it anything other than white. Why do white people have to own every fucking thing? You know what? Speaking of, and I don't know if this is true, but when we were talking about Superman, one of the students mentioned that Superman essentially was initially was a Jewish character written for Jewish people. Now, I don't know how true that is, but you can look it up. And then again, like I say, if I'm wrong, let me know. All right, moving on. Superman, please make Superman black. That would be dope to me. All right. In lieu of, how you say, certain developments, I always like to give you guys advice based on what I'm dealing with in life. And not necessarily all the time, but today we're going to look inward and deal with ourselves today. So, today's advice corner will be signs you've become a toxic person. This is via www.thelist.com. All right. Let's start with this. Let's start with this. We all struggle with being negative from time to time. It's a normal part of life, but we can allow ourselves to fall into toxic behavior that prevents our situation from improving. One of the toughest things, though, can be identifying the signs that we have become the toxic person in our lives. It can be horribly painful to admit that we are creating our own hardships, but once we take ownership, we can turn things around. So without further ado, here are some signs that you have become a toxic person. Number 1, you blame everyone for your problems. Very rarely is something ever truly one person's fault. Usually we play a role, even if it's minor, in whatever problems arise in our lives. While it is possible that you might have a unique kind of conflict with one person, it's a red flag if you start to feel like everyone in your life is out to get you. That's a good one. I don't really deal with that one so much. I'm very aware of my flaws and when I fuck up. And I try to apologize and I try to get better. But I deal with certain people who feel they never do anything wrong and everybody's out to get them. It's very frustrating because when you bring things up to them, they point the finger at everybody else and make it just seem like you're just fucking with them. No, you tripping. So if you're blaming everybody else for your problems, it's time to take some ownership. Number 2, you talk behind people's back. From our earliest days in grade school, we've been tempted into conversations that we know can hurt other people. Gossip is a part of life and will likely continue to exist until the end of time. That being said, you have a choice about whether to be an active participant. Now, this is something I think we all do. I'm guilty of it. I might talk some shit, and then on top, I don't think all the time it's malicious, but it is very toxic because the person you're talking to most likely now knows you talk behind their back. And see, for me, I don't think it's behind their back because whatever I've said, I will most definitely say to that person because that's the type of person I am. But it can be toxic when you're doing it maliciously and telling their business in privacy. All right. Number 3, you take more than you give. There will be times in your life when you genuinely need help. In fact, it can sometimes feel like certain periods of our lives are needier than others. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with relying on your support system when you are struggling. The problem arises, however, if you have a never-ending string of requests but never seem to be available to return the favor. Do you find yourself hiding when you know people are asking for help? Do you make excuses for why you can't lend a hand or offer assistance? If so, it won't be long before people start responding to your pleas in a time of need. Guilty. If you ask me to move, all of a sudden I'm sick. I don't feel good. I'm hurt. I am this person and I try to deal with it. I try to help where I can. But it is a very toxic behavior that, my son has kind of gotten me out of. And because I can't be selfish with him. I have to be outside of myself because his needs are more important than mine. So as he came, my perception changed and I try to be more helpful. Now I still, from a scale of 1 to 10 on the helpful meter, I'm probably a 3, but I was a -4. So I'm making progress. Next one. Your friends have disappeared. It's funny when people start leaving our lives, they tend to do it quietly in an attempt to avoid an uncomfortable confrontation. They are, after all, pulling away for a reason. It's not until a special occasion, crisis, or significant event occurs that we realize how alone we've become. I think I've dealt with a little bit of that. At some point, I felt like I was the one leaving the friendships, but I know there was a time where both of my closest homies were like getting tired of my constant complaining and shit when I was going through whatever I was going through. So again, here it says, take action, be brutally honest with yourself about why your friends have gone into hiding. Reach out to them, allow them to express any frustration about your behavior, and then decide whether the friendship is worth saving. If the friendship is worth saving. If it is, apologize for your actions and commit to making some changes. Straightforward, really simple. God damn it. Sorry, guys. Next one. Your life is constantly full of drama. I don't have a problem with this one, but I'll read it anyway. Everyone can go through some pretty intense moments in their lives. Sometimes we truly can't help what's happening around us, and all we can do is stay strong while focusing on how we can improve our situation. Like I said again, I'm drama-free as fuck. Drama-free AF. I don't deal with drama. I hate drama. There was a time where I was just in a dramatic situation. But for the most part, my life is mad boring, and I am allergic to drama, so I try to stay away from that and dramatic people. Next one, you can't let go. It can be really hard to move on when we've been hurt or disappointed by someone or something. Most of us, though, will find our way through these tough moments and begin looking forward to the happier times that lie ahead. I practice Buddhism, so I'm trying to practice living in the moment. And one thing they do preach, Buddhist, is non-attachment. Now, most people think that means you can't love things, and no, it's not that. It's just you gotta let go, especially things that are out of your control and you can't change. The past is gone. The future is an unknown. All we truly have in reality is right now, this moment. So let's try to stay in that moment. Next one. You have an intense need to be right. Bing, ding, 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 ding. Motherfucking ding, 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 ding. This is me all the way. There's a saying that asks a very valid question. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? My mom says that shit to me all the damn. That's crazy that says that. Because that's her favorite line to me. Anyway, there's a saying that asks a very valid question. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Wouldn't it be great if we could both be right and happy all the time? Sure. Is that possible or realistic? Absolutely not. Besides, in most situations, there will be more than one way to be right. It's all about compromise and seeing other people's perspectives. That's a good one. Because that's me 5,000%, and it's a very toxic behavior. And you know what? Sometimes I'm telling myself, I'm like, you know this is going to be an argument. Why do you even care? Just shut the fuck up and move on with your life. No, that person's wrong. I'm going to prove that they're wrong. And it is a very intense need. And I will drum it for days. Like with this Bill Cosby thing. I probably argued for a week when Trump got fucking elected. I argued for it till now. So, I don't know. I try to work with it. But some advice here says, resist the need to jump in with a fact or detail that proves your correctness on a matter. Learn to be content with allowing others to find their own answers, especially if it means keeping the peace. You know what? I'm going to try that. Next one. You tend to focus on the negative. There are positives and negatives to almost every situation in life. While it's important that we consider any potential consequences to our actions and choices, life is far more pleasant and productive when we adopt an optimistic outlook. Very straightforward. Try to keep your inner dialogue positive. Negative shit is going to happen. But you have, what's that parable? There's a wolf. That's a negative wolf and a positive wolf. Whichever one you feed, that's the one that's going to live. I know that's not it, but I'm paraphrasing. And those of you who know the quote know what I'm talking about. All right, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip through some of these. You dominate the conversation. I hate these type of people. And yeah, that's the last one. You dominate the conversation. So try not to dominate the conversation. You know who you are. People are talking to you, and they're like, man, I had a rough day, and then you jump in. My day was way more rough, or I've been through that too. Man, let the person talk. So those were ways to know if you exhibit toxic behavior via thelist.com. All right, I have about a minute left here. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining me again. Hotbox the Podcast is now on Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, SoundCloud. Basically, anywhere you can get a podcast, that's where I'm at. Please, if you can, or feel like it, rather, hit me up on the Hotbox the Podcast Facebook page. I'll field any questions or concerns or griefs or any fucked up shit you have to say to me. I'm all for it. I'm there. All right, this has been episode 27, 26. This has been episode something. I'll wear a lot in, smoke a lot of weed, so I can't remember. But anyway, as always, peace and love. Smoke a lot of weed, have a lot of sex, meditate more, stay away from toxic people. I am Dot. And this is Hotbox the Podcast.